Hello everyone, this is Void Spirit. I'm here to bring you guys amazing fanfiction that you will surely enjoy. But before we start, please subscribe and like the video for more amazing content.
Disclaimer is in the first chapter. Archi. Orcus Great Labyrinth, Part 02. In the labyrinth, there was a pack of two-tailed wolves. A pack of wolves usually consisted of 4 to 6 members. Because they were the weakest demon on this level, they compensated by cooperating in a group. The group that Hajime and Kaori found circling their friend was no exception. They totaled 3 in number. It wasn't their usual number, but it was easy to guess their number has decreased because of Shizuku's life and death struggle.
Hajime was dumbfounded when he saw Yagashi Shizuku in a helpless state. However, when Kaori saw her friend's pitiful condition, her emotionless face cracked. Her dirty face, yet still with a trace of beauty, slowly contorted into shock, then disbelief, and finally panic before she ran towards her best friend. Shizuku. Kaori anything but screamed, incurring the wolves' attention. Since their reunion, it was the first time Hajime heard a loud voice, full of emotion, from Kaori. Kaori? Shizuku stared at Kaori's direction. Her dull red eyes, full of despair and anguish, regained their luster, but they dimmed immediately. The savagery of the abyss has truly crushed Shizuku's spirit. Its brutality is too much. She has thoroughly broken and given up all hope. Ignoring the desolate look of the usually strong-willed girl, Kaori activated the only barrier magic she knew. Light severance. Finding another prey, they silently exchanged meaningful gaze, showing how smart and highly sentient they are, before they ran to Kaori. To them, the pitiful and helpless Shizuku was no threat. The healthy Kaori was a threat they needed to put down before they could feast.
They shot lightning magic to Kaori, which was blocked by light severance. It broke. However, Kaori rapidly cast her barrier again in a mere split second. In her current state, she is in the state where all her mind is focusing only on survival. Helping Shizuku was secondary. She could think about it after arriving next to Shizuku. Furthermore, her barrier magic is her only means to survive, and all her attention is focusing on casting that barrier.
For a moment, Kaori showed proficiency in barrier magic beyond Taniguchi Suzu, another female student who is hailed as barrier mistress. Witnessing how their attack was useless against the rampaging human-shaped bull, the wolves lunged to Kaori. There was a loud smacking sound. The light barrier shattered, but all wolves were thrown aside.
If he wasn't in a deadly situation, Hajime would think the sight was amusing, comical and humorous. He immediately slammed his remaining hand, covered with a glove with magic circle inscription, a focus to help him with his transmutation. Transmute. 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 Hajime chanted quickly while transmuting the ground where the wolves will land, creating holes that will engulf the electric canine. The wolves saw through Hajime's ruse, but the speed of their descending and their state in the air made their effort to move in vain. Hajime did another transmutation. With a loud shout, transmute. 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 He covered the holes with stones, trapping the savage wolves in their temporary cages.
Hajime crept to the wolves' cages, keeping his guard all the time. When he was standing above the cages and sure the wolves wouldn't break out soon, he focused on his next task, killing the wolves. Now what? My transmutation has no direct killing power. Both the speed and power of my transmuting did not seem to be enough to kill the demons. Mumbling that line, Hajime looked through a tiny peephole with his glistening eyes. The motionless wolf growled menacingly while it was in the hole. He took a quick glimpse of the girls and found Kaori was consoling the weeping Shizuku. While they were busy with their own stuff, he also needed to focus on his part. I wonder if I should suffocate them, but I can't wait for that. Hajime's eyes started to shine as it gained a predatorial glint. He prepared his right arm and cast his magic. He grabbed his makeshift stone spear tightly and slowly he transfigured it while he concentrated on an image. When it was done, the tip of the spear had been turned into a drill-like structure. Furthermore, it had other parts added onto it, like a handle. Now then, to dig. The spear was stabbed towards the ground where the wolf resided. Hard fur and skin made contact with the tip of the spear. After all, I can't stab you. That confirms my hypothesis. Why didn't he use a sword or knife? Because it is widely known that the stronger the demon, the harder it becomes. There were a few exceptions to it. Hajime had studied a lot to overcome his uselessness, and from what he had gathered, a normal sword or knife would be useless against these guys. Thus, Hajime started to rotate the handle on the spear. The spear spiraled to match Hajime's actions. He was using this spear as a drill to pierce through the demon's hard skin. Applying his weight to turn it, and eventually, it started to slowly dig into the beast's skin. Guru ah! The wolf screamed. The anguished scream of the wolf took Kaori and Shizuku's attention. Their eyes turned to Hajime and saw what the boy was doing. However, Hajime was focusing on his task too much, so he was unaware of the attention he had gained. Despair, anguish, misery, hatred, anger. The strong dark feelings erupted in his chest. Those dark feelings were always pushed in the innermost part of his mind, left forgotten because of Kaori. He didn't want Kaori to see him like that. But, he was too focused on killing the wolves. For him, at that moment, it was only the demonic beast wolf in him. He recalled why he must experience this kind of hell. How did I end up like this? A question he asked himself as he drilled the demon. His mind was weighed by the anguish and he suffered from pain and hunger. Unfortunately, because he had a clear mind, all the suffering was clearly felt. If this anguish continues for so long, no, I can't. Shirasaki, and now Yagashi. I can't die yet. They won't survive in this hell if I give up. We need to survive, together. Although he wished for death, a part of him still wanted to live. He remembered he wasn't alone now. There were Kaori and Shizuku. Kaori didn't know how to fight, her magic leaning towards support type. Shizuku was mutilated. Her condition was worse than his. He only lost his left arm while Shizuku lost her right arm and her left leg. They were helpless. It had become his duty to protect them. His mind jumbled together into an incomprehensible mess. However, all sufferings were clear in his mind. Why do I have to suffer? What did I do? His face twisted into a savage snarl. The stress mounting his showed its effect on his worn-down spirit. Why did this happen? What's the cause? He continued to drill, ignoring the haunting anguished howl of the demon wolf. God unreasonably abducted me. Hatred eclipsed his chest. He recalled how he and his classmates were summoned without their consent, kidnapped from their life, and forced to fight a war that didn't have any relation with them. A classmate betrayed me. He recalled Hayama Daisuke's face, the fireball that strayed, aimed to his direction, then the fall into the abyss. The rabbit looked down on me, the small rabbit that destroyed his left hand. That guy ate me, the white bear that tried to make him and Kaori into its meal. Gradually his thoughts became darker. Who was wrong? Who forced their unreasonableness onto him? Who harmed him? The pain gradually turned into rage. Rage led to hatred. He sought an enemy. Everything had worked in to corrupt his spirit. The severe pain and starvation that wrecked his body and the events that led him here into this endless darkness. Even though Shirasaki is here, nobody has come to rescue us, only Yagaki, and she almost died. Where the fuck is that third-rate hero wannabe with twisted sense of justice, or those fools calling themselves our classmates? Submerged deep by his dark thought, he missed the fearful eyes on Kaori and Shizuku's faces as they saw the demonic expression on his face.
If nobody is going to help us, then it's better to cut all connection with them. I won't help them next time. There won't be next time.
His face became expressionless. Kaori and Shizuku, who saw that, felt shiver in their spine. What am I wishing for? I wish for life. What type of people impedes me? My enemies. Then what should I do? Kill. Not for malice, animosity, or hate. In order to live, he will kill with pure intent. All those who threaten his survival are enemies, and to my enemies.
Kill, 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 kill. To escape this feeling of starvation, kill and devour. At this moment, the mild and gentle, apologizing with a bitter smile at any sign of conflict, the Hajime that Kaori thought was strong utterly fell from grace. A new Nagumo Hajime came into existence. A Nagumo Hajime that would ruthlessly eliminate any who stood in his way of survival. His broken heart broke again. This new heart, however, was not a weak heart that was roughly patched up. No, his new tough heart was reforged by the fires of agony, despair, and darkness. Does it hurt? I won't apologize. I'm doing this to live. Don't you guys eat me too? We both feel the same. While talking, he had constantly been rotating the drill. The wolf tried to struggle desperately, but it was impossible because it had not a single gap to work against. Finally, the drill had broken through its tough skin layer.
The drill mercilessly destroyed the wolf's innards. A death cry escaped from its mouth. It screamed for a bit, but soon it twitched for a bit and finally stopped moving. Alright, let's secure the food first. Laughing gleefully, sounding a bit insane, he butchered the other two in the same manner. He missed the apprehensive look in the girl's eyes as he did that. Oh, Hajime watched two women huddling on each other from the corner of his eyes. His hand didn't stop dismantling the twin-tailed wolves, even though his speed decreased from splitting his focus between the wolves and the two huddling girls. To find Shizuku in Abyss was a shock to Hajime and Kaori. Furthermore, they found her in very bad condition and almost got eaten by 3 electric wolves. Shizuku had lost her right arm and left leg, bloodied stump in their place. Her left hand and right leg were mangled. Her outfit was shredded, turned into rags, while her body was littered with claws and bites marks. Kaori had scrambled to her without a second thought, deploying her holy severance, and ramming herself into those wolves. They scattered because of Kaori's reckless assault. The black-haired healer healed her best friend desperately in the meantime. The ordeal with the wolves was when Hajime had lost his innocence. The demonic beast wasn't a simple animal. To call them sentient being won't be a mistake. He lost his innocence by killing those deadly sentient being that predated on him and his companions. After that, they came back to their hideout, Hajime dragging the wolves while Kaori carried Shizuku on her back, abusing her weak starved body to help their disabled friend. Although Kaori had a poker face, the tears on her face betrayed her real feeling. Abyss was truly hell and it twisted them without mercy. Now, they are here, in the hidden base Hajime had created, starved, mentally tattered and despaired. Kaori had tried her best to console Shizuku. The sight of the airhead Kaori consoling Shizuku, who was a wreck and weeping like a terrorized child, was bittersweet. Back in Japan, it was usually Shizuku's role to be the adult, the mother hen, in her clique, but this place had shifted that role. Hajime also realized that Shizuku is a big softie and way more girlish than Kaori ever be. She repressed that part of her and showed the persona of cool and level-head, Oni-sama, big sister, who was not unlike a samurai because of the expectation she put on herself as the sole daughter and successor of her family's kenjutsu, sword art, school. Before she realized it, it was already too late for her to change her way of presenting herself to others. Now, Shizuku is utterly destroyed. It will be a hard and slow process to mend her up. Hajime didn't hold on the illusion that Shizuku will return back to her former state, not after what she had experienced. Furthermore, her disabled state was also the incurable wound that always reminds her of what happened. It was up to her for recovering. Either she can move on and become stronger in spirit, or she will stay as disabled girl with weak will and broken heart forever. Everything is up to her and only her alone. The stabbing pain of starvation snapped Hajime from his train of thoughts. Pressing his lips into a thin, grim line, he focused his mind solely on his task. He almost finished dismantling the wolves. The first dismantlement produced a bad result. The fur of the wolf was unsalvageable. Although he had read a book about dismantling in past, it felt different in the actual practice. At least, the second and third dismantling was proven better. Alright, I'm going to prepare the food first. Hajime informed his two companions. Although he said that, they didn't have means to cook the wolves. He just cut the meat into small strips, for easy eating. Looking at the strips of meat, his starving state became apparent. It roared and demanded to be sated. But, he held himself and offered the first servings to the girls. No, you take the first serving, Nagumo-kun. You were the one who hunted it and prepared it. Furthermore, you must be very starving from what happened. Kaori declined the offer strongly. Her eyes shone with strong resolution. She wouldn't take no for the answer. She wouldn't forgive herself if she kept inconveniencing Hajime. Leaning on the wall, sitting next to Kaori, Shizuku alternated her gaze between Hajime and the raw meat. She seemed hungry, but she held herself back. Both girls had realized that they must do anything for their survival, even doing something they never did before, like eating a raw meat. There was no disgust, only resignation. Even so, they wanted Hajime to eat first because it was Hajime who killed the beast. Nagumo-kun should eat it first. Kaori and I will eat after that. Shizuku's voice was faint and meek. She sounded like a traumatized little girl. Hajime stared back at their eyes. He scrutinized Kaori's dull brown eyes and Shizuku's wavering reddish-brown eyes. He sighed and nodded. Since there were 3 wolves, Hajime decided to fill his stomach until it is full. Even though he was starving, he couldn't eat everything alone. 1 wolf was enough for him. He tentatively took the first bite. Ow, goo, this seriously tastes like shit. He grimaced when he tasted the meat. The disgusting smell and taste would cause anyone to lose appetite. He forced himself to eat as quickly as possible while ignoring the horrid taste. He ate the wolf meat with a curse. The meat was very tough, and blood dripped off as he took a bite and swallowed. This had been his first meal for the past weeks. The stomach was surprised to suddenly receive the meat. Pains shot through his body at the stomach's protest. Hajime knew he would get such a response and ignore it to keep eating. His appearance looked so feral. As the matter of fact, Shizuku had averted her eyes from the repulsing sight. Surprisingly, Kaori kept her gaze at Hajime unwaveringly. The sight of Hajime was feral. He looked like an uncivilized caveman. Hajime did not even consider such a thought because he was happy to have a meal. He continued to eat in a daze. He was eating so much of this meat that his belly swelled and drinking the sacred water that the Church of Saints would be envious of. After he finished his portion, he heard Kaori ask a question to him. "How is it, Nagumo-kun?" Hajime turned his eyes to Kaori and opened his mouth to reply. At that moment, an unusual phenomenon struck his body. "Ah! Ow!" Hajime gasped and slapped his stomach. Then, he fell down the floor, curling into himself. "Nagumo-kun?" He heard Kaori and Shizuku's calls, but his attention was elsewhere, namely the sudden pain in his stomach. Then, an intense pain suddenly racked his body. Erosion, that was the best word to describe what horrible sensation he felt going through his body. The pain intensified as time passed. Gwa. What? Goo. Excruciating pain corroded his body. Hajime thrashed on the ground. This pain was so strong that it blew away his phantom limb pain. He hazily realized that Kaori and Shizuku had fallen into a panic. Kaori had anything but jumped to his downed body and started healing him. Meanwhile, Shizuku had crept to his position, held his shoulder and shook it to calm him. However, the girl's attempt to alleviate his pain was in vain. Ambrosia, he croaked amidst the intense pain. Kaori understood what he meant and took a vial of ambrosia they had collected. While tensing his muscle to stop his body from trashing, he drank the ambrosia with Kaori's help. The sacred water quickly went to work and the pain subsided, but a short time later the agony continued. Higuga. What the? It didn't help. Ow! His body started to pulsate with the pain. Thump, thump, his body pulsed. Even the sounds could be heard coming from his body. However, the next moment, the sacred water's healing properties started to restore his body. When it was done healing him, the pain returned. Then it was repaired again. Even the sacred water could not stunt the effects. The tremendous healing ability was actually backfiring here. Hajime screamed as he floundered on the ground. His movement had thrown Kaori and Shizuku's bodies away from him. He banged his head repeatedly against the floor at the unending sight of his hell. Even if he wanted to die, there would be none to grant his desire, so he had no choice but to endure it. He also couldn't die, not with Kaori who was without means to survive in this abyss and the disabled Shizuku. He must endure for their sake. Changes started to form on Hajime's body. First, his hair lost all color. Maybe because of a pain that broke his threshold, or another cause, his black Japanese hair turned white. Next, his muscles and skeleton started to thicken. Crimson lines started to emerge all over his body. There is a phenomenon called overcompensation. This is the process the body goes through when training muscles. The muscles are broken down by the severe use and in order to compensate and adapt to the strain, it creates stronger and more muscle when the body recovers. The same happens to the skeletal system. Hajime's body was going through this phenomenon. Demon meat was a deadly poison for humans. All of them had magic stones in their body, and this allowed for their wonderful physical ability with their magical power. Inside his body, this magic was strongly permeating his muscles and bones. This magic was the special magic that did not require the magic circles or incantation to cast, and his magic was getting altered. This kind of alteration would be fatal to a human. From the inside of the body, the poison would erode the body and destroy the cells. In the past, anyone who had consumed demon flesh was broken to pieces and died. Hajime knew of this, but his starvation had caused him to be unable to recall this knowledge. If Hajime had just eaten the demon flesh then he would have collapsed and died. However, there was an elixir that prevented that. Sacred water, it will restore immediately what once was broken. Because of this constant breaking and restoring, overcompensation, his body strengthened at an unbelievable speed. Destroy, repair, destroy then repair. The body changed while pulsing. It looked like he was being reborn. A ceremony of birth to throw away the body's weakness, a metamorphosis. Hajime's screams were like the first cry of a newborn. Lying on the ground while supporting her body with her hands, Kaori watched the thrashing Hajime mutely. Tears fell endlessly from her eyes, drenching her cheeks. Kaori felt her world started to crumble apart when she witnessed the agony Hajime was enduring. Inwardly, the grief, despair, and regret engulfed her heart. She regretted that she didn't accept Hajime's offer earlier. At least, she would know if the wolf's meat is safe to eat or not. She would be the one who was in agony, and not Hajime. She felt useless, pathetic, like a good-for-nothing, always become a burden for Hajime since she had fallen into the abyss. On the other hand, Shizuku also felt the same anguish her best friend was feeling. She was also crying, like Kaori. The feeling she never realized she harbored started to surface. She remembered how she knew about Hajime. It was started with her helping Kaori's research in manga, anime and light novel. She wouldn't say it loudly, but from that research, she also found something she liked. Mostly cute and fluffy type of anime and manga. She also harbored admiration for Hajime. Hajime was always honest with himself. He didn't even mind being looked down and insulted as good-for-nothing otaku because he expressed himself openly. Shizuku admired and envied Hajime for his honesty towards himself. She wanted to be like him, someone who's honest and open about himself. However, she didn't have the courage to express herself. She hid behind her mask. When she realized Kaori held a crush on Hajime, she stopped her admiration to grow into a romantic crush on him. However, love was a mysterious force. It was insidious and it had germinated in her heart without her knowing it. However, she hid it because she didn't want to fight with her best friend over a boy. Witnessing Hajime in that state, she was truly worried about him and feared for his safety. She didn't want him to end just like this. She knew Hajime was the reason why Kaori's still alive, and they would be devastated if Hajime died. She hoped, prayed, Hajime would survive whatever happened to him, for their sakes. When the pulsation stopped, Hajime went limp. Pure white was his hair color now, and crimson lines formed on his body. He was just like the monsters that plagued this level. Hajime's right hand twitched. The closed eyes were opened slightly. His unfocused eyes settled onto his right hand. Grasping his hand into a fist, he scratched the ground. He slowly clasped and unclasped his hand to prove he was still alive. When he finished checking if he had control of his body, he stood up slowly. "Oh, yeah. You weren't supposed to eat demon meat. I'm an idiot, but I couldn't help but eat it." Hajime felt foolish, so he uttered that words. At that moment, a black blur slammed him. He felt a soft sensation on his torso and his chest became wet. He realized the black missile was Kaori. She was hugging his body tightly and sobbing hardly on his front. "Thank God. Hick, why you're okay. Hick T that you're alive. I thought. Hick I thought you die." Hajime felt awkward and he didn't know what to do. He never had any experience to calm down a crying girl. His eyes turned to Shizuku, asking for help. However, he discarded his idea immediately when he saw the formerly straight-laced ponytail swordswoman was also sobbing, albeit with a relieved grin. Need to find a way to break this atmosphere, ASAP, Hajime thought in distress while standing stupidly. Oh, walking towards the nearby stream alone, Hajime's fingers played with the status plate. Nagumo Hajime age, 17 gender, male level, 8 job, synergist. Strength, 100 vitality, 300 defense, 100 agility, 200. Magic. 300 magic defense, 300 skills, transmute, mana manipulation, iron stomach, lightning field, language comprehension. After desperately calming down Kaori and Shizuku from their weeping episode, Hajime realized he'd changed. He felt more powerful. Then, he checked his status plate. What greeted him was something that shocked him, even Kaori and Shizuku. He had shouted, "What in tarnation?" Slipping into his habit of uttering weird accent when he was surprised. Actually, it was embarrassing, but he held back the embarrassment because his slip lightened the atmosphere. At least, he saw Shizuku giggling and Kaori smiling. His stats had all risen astronomically, and he had 3 new skills. But his level had only risen to 8. Since a person's level represented the proportion of the total potential they had reached, it would seem that Hajime's growth limits had increased as well. As the matter of fact, his stats could be said to have potential to surpass Kuki's hero stats. There is a skill called mana manipulation. If he took it literally, that would mean Hajime had gained the power to directly control mana. He had felt a weird sensation in his body and decided to experiment with his new skill. The result was satisfactory. He could control mana without focus like other summon students. Even Kaori was dumbfounded when she saw that. He also gained a skill, lightning field. It was lightning element skill he gained after eating the wolf. He realized that he gained the ability of monster he had eaten. But, the price was too much. Although he was still looking like a human, Hajime knew he had changed. He didn't know what he had become. He didn't show he was bothered by it in front of Kaori and Shizuku. He didn't want to affect their mental state. He had left the girls in their hideout. He told them that he would search for edible food, an edible plant or normal animal. He didn't want them to pay their due in the abyss with their humanity, like him. They had enough already. However, he felt unsure if he could find it. To him, he didn't care if he must stave his hunger with demonic beasts' meat. His iron stomach guaranteed his survivability. Let's ignore about what if scenario. What's important is to find edible food for them. There is a stream here and I hope the normal fish hasn't become extinct or turned into demonic beast yet. Hajime tried to focus himself on his task. Arriving in the stream, he returned his status plate into his pocket. He then jumped into the stream while holding his stone harpoon tightly. He had confidence in himself that he could fight well in the water. His lightning field would give him a major advantage in the battle against aquatic demonic beasts. Hajime searched for normal fish for almost 2 hours. The early part of his hunt was quite troublesome since he needed to return back to the surface because he needed oxygen. After he recklessly eaten a fish-type demonic beast, he gained underwater breathe skill. When this skill was activated, small holes that acted like gills would appear in his neck, filtering out the water that had entered his orifice. It was a very useful skill. In the end, he returned back with 3 fishes. They weren't big. The biggest was as big as his spread-out palm, but they would stave Kaori and Shizuku's starvation. While on the way back, he found useful ores that would help him in producing better quality weapons for him and the girls. He gained ore appraisal skill from level up after killing the demonic beasts that unluckily met him on the way to stream and the aquatic demonic beasts. The ores he found on the way to the stream and from the river floor were green glowstone. This ore can absorb mana. When it is saturated with mana, it emits a faint green light. If you break a saturated glowstone, the light it has contained within explodes out all at once in a brilliant flash. Blastric. A combustible ore. When exposed to fire, it burns like oil. As it burns, it slowly decreases in volume until it finally burns to cinders. Burning large quantities of blastric in a confined space will make it explode violently. Depending on its quantity and pressure, it's possible to create flames as strong as those created by fire magic. Tor stone. A black, hard rock. On the Moss scale that went up to 10, it would rank an 8 for hardness. It is able to handle heat and direct impacts well, but is weak to the cold. Cooling the stone makes it brittle and fragile. However, reheating it will restore its hardness. He had ideas to create flashbangs from the green glowstone and firearms with blastric as the gunpowder. He was impatient to start it, but he realized Kaori and Shizuku's food was his first priority on the list. He took the useful ores as much as possible with the makeshift bag from the fur of poor wolves that met him. At long last, he came back from his fruitful travel. He got materials to create weapons, found normal fish for Kaori and Shizuku, and killed some demonic beasts and devoured them to level up. When he entered the hidden hideout through the hidden entrance, he froze on his spot as he saw Kaori and Shizuku's new appearance. Snow-white hair and pair of blood-red eyes, red veins like tattoo on their pale skin, and the developed body that held explosive power behind those matured feminine curvy figures. They had changed, demonized. They had eaten the remaining wolf's meat in the room. When they realized he had come back, Shizuku showed a sorry expression. That expression was likely because she had ignored Hajime's warning, while Kaori sent a sweet smile in his direction. Welcome back, Hajime-kun. Sorry, we ignored your warning and ate the meat. But we're really starving, you see. Besides, it wasn't as bad as it seems. Don't blame yourself for this, okay? Knowing your personality, you will likely blame yourself. It was our decision in the first place. So, you needn't worry. Like hell it is. You don't look like you're sorry at all. And why did you discard your humanity easily? How could I be not worry? Hajime retorted unconsciously in his mind. His cheeks were twitching because of his intense, complicated feelings. However, he squashed his anger because the resolution in Kaori and Shizuku's eyes. This was their decision. They had prepared for it. It wasn't his place to be angry about their choice, even though it was a wrong one. Good grief, these 2 girls. You 2 are fools. The girl's answer was a grin. Oh, author's note. And, here is the second chapter. I hope you like it. I want to edit Kaori and Shizuku illustrations by Takayaki-sensei to show their new appearances. But, I think I'll present it after the end of the first arc. Hajime's underwater breathe skill is a non-canon skill. Honestly, Hajime had so much potential with his iron stomach skill and the girls now have it. I will abuse the hell of it in this story.